Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Planetarium show. My name is Jessica. I'm the director of the Planetarium, and with me tonight is one of our students who I will let say hi and introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Luis. I'm a chemical engineering student at UMD working here at the Planetarium.
So, tonight we have our monthly constellation show where we're going to take a look at the stars and constellations that are up during the month of October. As always, if you have any questions throughout the show tonight, you can feel free to leave them down in the comments. Louise is going to keep an eye on that and will let me know as questions pop up, and we'll also have time at the end for those questions as well. All right, well, let me get switched over and we will get started. So, for our constellation show, we use this really awesome program here called Stellarium. It lets us basically put in a date, time, and location, and it shows you what the sky looks like. Now, we have this set up for us here in Duluth. If you live somewhere else, as long as you're in the northern hemisphere, the stars that we're going to talk about and where they are, they'll still be pretty close to what you might see. But if you're closer to the equator or even in the southern hemisphere, it's going to look a good bit different. But this program, Stellarium, is free to download, so you could put your own location in and take a look at what the sky would look like for you. All right, so we are currently set up, as I said, for Duluth for right now, 7:02. And so we see the sun is setting down in the west. We're getting, later in the year, we're getting those shorter days. And so the sun is setting a bit earlier. Peeking out in the southwest is the planet Venus. So that first kind of bright point of light that you might see just after sunset to the west, that's going to be Venus. And it's going to be here all month long. In fact, it's going to get a little bit easier to see throughout the month as it's moving further and further away from the sun. All right, but we can't really see any stars at this point, so I'm going to use some planetary magic and fast forward time here so that the sun sets, and we'll go until about 8 o'clock, where we have some nice dark skies now here. Now, these are pretty dark skies, so not what you would see if you're kind of in a city with a lot of light pollution, but you'll still see some of these brightest stars. But if you're able to get away from light pollution, away from city lights, this is definitely more of what you would see. And of course, the darker your skies are, the more you'll see. So to start our constellation show, we are going to start where we always start for these, and that is in the north. So in the north, we have a set of stars and constellations that are up all year long. And so those are always a great place to start because they're always going to be there. And so that gives you kind of a familiar place to get your bearings in the sky. And then we'll teach you how you can use these to find other constellations in the sky. So we're going to start with probably the most familiar set of stars in the north. And that is these 7 stars right here. These 7 stars make up what's known as the Big Dipper. Although I have to tell you, the Big Dipper is not a constellation, it's actually an asterism. It's a smaller grouping of stars within a larger constellation. In this case, these 7 bright stars are a part of the Greek constellation of Ursa Major, or the Big Bear. And so to see the bear, the handle of our dipper is actually our tail. And then we have the back, ear, nose, chest, front legs, belly, and back legs. And that is our big bear. Now, for the Greeks, there is another bear in the sky. Since we have a big bear, there's also a little bear. To find that little bear, we can use the Big Dipper to help us. If we find those front 2 stars on the Big Dipper, these are known as our pointer stars. Because if you connect them in a line and follow that line up, it'll point you to this bright star here, which is Polaris, also known as the North Star. This is a pretty special star and was used for, a long time for navigation and things. And a lot of people mistake its importance by thinking it must be the brightest star in the night sky. And that's actually not the case. That honor goes to the star Sirius, which is up in the winter. But the reason the North Star is so special is because it's the only star in the sky that doesn't move. So if we were to keep going through time here, which I will just a little bit, you see that all of the other stars move except for the North Star here. And that's what makes it special, because it's always in the same place. People realized that and knew that if you can find that star, you'll know what direction north is. And if you know north, you know the other directions. All right, I'm going to pop back a couple hours, back to 8 o'clock, just so we can get back to how the sky was. So we've taken our pointer stars to find Polaris. And it is the end of the handle of the Little Dipper. And so we have the handle and the cup of our Little Dipper. A Little Dipper is also the Greek constellation of Ursa Minor, the little bear. And so we have, again, the handle is the tail, and then we have back legs, body, front legs, and head. And that is Ursa Minor, our little bear, which quite frankly definitely looks more like a squirrel to me, especially when we turn the artwork on. These bears have very long tails, which is not typical of a bear, and there's kind of a running joke that clearly the Greeks had never seen a bear before in order for these to have such long tails, but that's actually not the case. The Greeks had a story to explain why these bears had such long tails, and the story starts with Zeus, king of the Greek gods. So Zeus is known for kind of heading down to Earth and making friends with people on Earth, even when he's supposed to be back at home up on Mount Olympus. And that's how our story starts. Zeus has gone down to Earth. He's met a woman named Callisto. They become friends. He's kind of hanging out with her in their village. And his wife Hera realizes that he's left home again and comes down to Earth to drag him back home. But this time she is so mad at him that she decides to punish him by turning his new friend Callisto into a bear. And so Callisto's now a bear. Zeus gets dragged off. Unfortunately, Callisto had a son named Arcus, who after, a couple hours with his mom not coming home, he got worried. He goes out in the woods to try and find her, and he ends up coming across this big, beautiful bear that was his mom, but he didn't know that. And so, he draws his weapons to try and defend himself from this bear. Well, Zeus had snuck back out again to try and check on Callisto, saw what was about to happen, realized that Arcus was actually her son, because, he's a Greek god, he can figure that stuff out. But unfortunately, he couldn't turn Callisto back human. So he decides to turn Arcus into a bear as well, and placed them up in the sky so that they could at least live together forever up in the sky, albeit as bears, but at least they'll be together. And in order to get them up into the night sky, he had to pick them up by their bear tails, spin them around, and fling them up into the sky. And that process of being spun and flung is what stretched out those bear tails. And so we have our mama bear Callisto here as our big bear, and her son Arcus as the little bear. All right, let's find a few more constellations. Yes, Quinn, thank you. My cat is very much excited about this next constellation. So we're going to use those pointer stars again. But this time, instead of going all the way to Polaris, we're actually going to stop at the first star that we see. This star is the tail of Draco the dragon. And so we're going to follow his tail, winding through and around the dippers, up to his belly and his eyes and mouth, and he's breathing fire all over this part of the sky. And so we have Draco the dragon. All right. Well, now let's move on over to the northeast sky, where we have a pretty epic Greek tale involving 6 6, 5, 1, 2, 5 constellations. So before, or I'm going to introduce a few of these characters' constellations to you first, and then we'll move into kind of the beginning of the story, introduce a few more, and go on that way. So the first constellation we want to find, we again can use those pointer stars to help us. This time, we are going to go past Polaris until we reach this big W in the sky. This W, to the Greeks, was the Queen Cassiopeia. And you kind of have to use a bit of imagination to see a queen right here. We picture her as if she's sitting in her throne, and we're getting kind of a profile view. And so we have her head, back, upper legs, lower legs, and big long clown feet. That is the Queen Cassiopeia. So our queen also has her king up here with her. To find the king, we're going to kind of jump from our queen up and to the left a little bit, where we will find a triangle that's attached to a square. And this is the throne of King Cepheus. And right now he's upside down, so his head would be here, and then these would be the arms and the legs down here. And so that is our King Cepheus. Now, our queen and king were not nice people. They were absolutely horrible to the people that they ruled over, were just very mean, didn't care about anyone else but themselves, and one day decided to go as far as claiming that Queen Cassiopeia was the most beautiful being in all of the world, claiming to be even more beautiful than the gods and goddesses. Well, before we get to kind of what happens there, let's introduce one more character, because our evil king and queen actually had a daughter. And so to find the daughter, we're going to go back to our W, our queen, and we're going to take the right part of that W and pretend that's an arrow, which is going to point us to the hips or belt of Andromeda. So this is Princess Andromeda. Her head is here. We have her body, arms outstretched, and legs going down this way. That is our Princess Andromeda. This program draws it a little bit weird, but this is Andromeda here. All right, so back to our story. So our king and queen have made this bold statement that Queen Cassiopeia is more beautiful than anything else, including the gods and goddesses. And this is one surefire way to get the Greek gods to be very upset with you. So they come and pay the king and queen a visit. And at first they go, a little easy on them. They're like, okay, say you're sorry, apologize, say you're wrong, you're not more beautiful than us, and we'll just let this go. King and queen absolutely refused. They were not going to back down. So the gods decide, all right, well, we're going to have to punish you then. And so they take Princess Andromeda and chain her up on a rock in the middle of the ocean and set a giant sea monster after her. And so that's why our poor Princess Andromeda here is pictured kind of with her arms outstretched. That's her kind of chained to that rock in the middle of the ocean. And then they go back to the king and queen, the gods do, and say, all right, well, we're going to sacrifice your daughter unless you apologize. And again, these are not nice people. So the king and queen don't care. They don't care about their daughter. And they're like, whatever. And just go about their day. And so poor Andromeda is just left out there with the sea monster heading her way. Thankfully, though, there was our last two characters that happened to be flying by at that moment. So our kind of hero is can be found just below Queen Cassiopeia. This is a group of stars here. This is Perseus. And so we have his head, his body, his legs, and his arm is outstretched, and he is holding the head of Medusa. That's kind of Perseus's claim to fame. He's the guy who killed Medusa. Now, Perseus isn't alone. He has a faithful steed with him, which is, I have to say, one of my favorite constellations. So it consists of this star, this one, and this one, and back to the first. Yes, it is a big square, but it is supposed to represent the winged horse Pegasus. Now you can see on here, people will often add in some extra lines to try and make it look like a horse with wings. But yeah, I still don't quite understand how the Greeks saw this as a horse with wings. But back to our story. Perseus has killed Medusa. He is flying home on Pegasus. In fact, I can turn on all of the pictures now since we have all of our characters out. And he looks down and he hears the cries of Princess Andromeda, sees her chained to the rock, and sees the sea monster heading her way. Well, he very quickly kind of realizes that he should probably try and save the princess, and thinks the best way to do this without, himself getting killed. And he remembers he has Medusa's head. And if you don't know, Medusa has this power where when you look her in the eye, you turn to stone. That's why it was such a big deal that Perseus was able to kill her. So Perseus pulls out Medusa's head, points it towards the sea monster, who then looks in her eyes, turns to stone, and sinks down to the bottom of the ocean. And now he is safe to fly down, unchain Andromeda, and they go flying off together to live happily ever after. Well, that still leaves our king and queen here without being punished. And I just realized that this program draws Cepheus not upside down. This is one of the things you'll learn as you might want to look into kind of constellations. There are lots of different versions and lots of different ways to see these constellations, to picture them, because a lot of them don't look like they're supposed to. So it does take a lot of imagination. Anyway, aside, I keep getting distracted in our story. I apologize. So Andromeda's been freed. The king and queen have not been punished. So the gods, in their last resort, decide to chain the king and queen up into the sky, where they will be imprisoned there forever. And they were positioned so that they could never look at each other, and that's kind of why they're oriented the way they are, so that they're trapped there, but they'll never be able to see each other again, and so they'll never be able to feed their vanity. And that is the great Greek epic tale in the East, our great, let's call it the fall epic. Lots of great characters and stories here. But before we move on from here, there's something else that I want to point out that is visible in this portion of the sky. And you may notice this little fuzzy blob right here, which, if we go back to Cassiopeia and that arrow that we drew, you actually pass it on the way to getting to the Princess Andromeda. Well, this fuzzy blob is actually a galaxy called the Andromeda Galaxy, and that's because it's in the constellation of Andromeda. This is an entirely separate galaxy from our own, and in fact the only galaxy that you can see with your naked eye that you do not need a telescope for. You can see this all on your own if you have a dark enough sky in the fall, and it'll look like this little fuzzy patch in the sky. Now, if you do have a pair of binoculars or a telescope, you'll be able to see it in a bit more detail. You'll be able to make out more of the kind of disc shape to it. And then, of course, with really powerful telescopes and some imaging that you can do to collect a lot of light over a long period of time, you can see the beautiful spiral galaxy that is the Andromeda Galaxy. Now, this galaxy is the closest galaxy to us, and it's about 2.5 million light years away. So the light that we see coming from this galaxy actually left that galaxy 2.5 million years ago. So we're essentially looking back in time, seeing the galaxy as it was 2.5 million years ago, which is pretty cool. All right. So let's turn ourselves over to the south and southeast to look at a few more things. Up in the south, we see a couple of very bright points of light. These are not stars. This is actually Jupiter and Saturn. They've been up for quite a few months now, and they will continue to hang around with us for probably another month or two. So we have, again, Jupiter and Saturn. And you'll see that right now, Jupiter and Saturn are set in this kind of offset triangle. This is the constellation of Capricorns. And that is supposed to be a goat with a fishtail. So this part of the triangle is like that fishtail, and then this is supposed to be like his goat head and front legs. And so, yeah, we have this. I'm very curious to see what the art looks like. Yeah, goat with a fishtail. And so this goat started out as a just plain goat. He was a god named Pan. And Pan was actually fighting a Titan. And he was running away, trying to get away from it. But as he kept running away, the Titan kept following him. And so he ends up reaching the edge of land where the ocean is, jumps in the ocean, hoping that, this will stop the Titan from following him. And it doesn't. He just keeps going. And by this point, the other gods have noticed what's going on and decide to turn the back half of Pan into a fishtail, so that he could swim fast enough to finally get away from the monster. And that leaves us with our half goat, half fish up in the sky. Very interesting constellation. Now, another one we can find up here, which is right in between Pegasus and Capricorn, is this set of stars here. And this is supposed to be kind of like a guy, and you kind of picture that he's kneeling on the ground. And so this would be like one leg that's bent. Here's his other leg with his knee on the ground. And then we have his body. And then he's pouring a pitcher of water. And that's because this is Aquarius, the water bearer. So he's basically the water pitcher holder for the gods. He was actually brought up to Mount Olympus by Zeus because Zeus just really liked him and wanted him to join them up there. And so he now has a job working for the gods up on Mount Olympus. All right. And then lastly, over in the west, we are seeing still our summer triangle. So that is still up for a little bit longer, but it is starting to now set in the west, so it won't be up for too much longer. And there we go. There are our October constellations. So I'm going to clear these out so we can kind of see the sky in all its glory a little bit more. And let's just speed up time a bit more. Watch those stars move. Over in the east, not too late, around midnight, we are starting to see those winter constellations make their way into the sky. Because whether we like it or not, winter is coming, and so are the constellations. And then, of course, over in the west, we have our summer constellations have set, and our fall ones are getting a little bit lower in the sky once we get to early morning. And then we have sunrise. And we are back to daytime. And so there you have it. There is our October constellation stories. All right. Did we have any questions?
No, it did not look like we had any.
All right. Well, if anyone does have questions, now is a great time to leave them down in the comments. If you are interested in hearing about that summer triangle, you can always go watch any of our summer constellation storytime shows. So, for many of the months over the summer, we talk about those constellations in there and some other summer constellations as well. So we'll give it a few minutes to see if any questions do come through. In the meantime, I can tell you what's coming up over the next week. So we are into our Spooktober event where we'll be doing fun, spooky or Halloween themed shows throughout the month of October. So next Wednesday, we're kicking off Spooktober with the history of Halloween, which you may not know actually has some astronomical significance to it. So we're going to learn all about that. And then next Saturday is Beyond Bizarre, looking at some of the very strange things in space. If you're interested, we do have our entire Spooktober lineup out. You can find all of those events in the events tab of our Facebook page. And then, of course, we will round up October with our Halloween event happening on October 30th. We're doing Halloween outside the planetarium again. It's going to look similar to our event last year. So it'll be a drive-through event again, where we'll be handing out goodie bags with fun activities that you can do at home. We are preparing a lot more of these because of the just overwhelming support that we had last year, which we still are kind of in shock by. But we want to make sure that we have enough bags for everyone, so we are preparing a lot more this year. In addition to that, we'll have demonstrations that you can watch from your car. We're going to be doing the pumpkin drop again, because who doesn't love seeing a pumpkin thrown off the roof of the planetarium? It's just going to be a lot of fun. So you can find more about that. Again, you can find it in the events section of our Facebook page. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up. I guess we did just have oh, yay! We got some new people to Duluth. Well, definitely come check us out. We love putting on this Halloween event. I think it's one of my favorite things to plan and do. I love Halloween, so we've got some really great stuff planned for this year, and we are hoping, next year we'll be able to be back with the full in-person event like we did our first 2 years. But I'm happy with how the drive-through event went last year. I mean, as I
No, it
said,
went really well.
we had so much more people show up than we thought, which we appreciate and love all of your supports. So yeah, like I said, we're trying to make it bigger and better this year so that we can have hopefully enough for everyone. But yeah.
Yeah, lots of candy.
Always. I mean, it's Halloween. We gotta have
Always
candy.
a lot of candy.
And that's the thing. Like, even if we do run out of the activity bags, we will still have lots of candy to give out. Um, but we're hoping to not run out um, until the very end this year. But we'll see.
Yeah.
So what happens in the drive-through event? So we will have a table set up to pass out the goodie bags, which has those activities that I mentioned. And so they're just fun, kind of sciencey experiments and activities that you can do at home, and candy as well. And then we'll have several
Yeah.
tables set up with demonstrations. So we have like magic potions that you can watch, an erupting pumpkin, which was a big hit last year, so we're bringing it back. And then I think we're going to have one new one that we're still getting the exact details for, and I don't want to spoil everything about the event. And then after that, there will be kind of a portion of the parking lot where you can pull up and watch the pumpkin drop, which will happen every half hour starting at 3:15. So we'll have four pumpkin drops, and yeah, awesome. All right, well, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you everyone so much for joining us tonight. Definitely check out our full lineup for Spooktober shows. We got some really great ones, including Louise's Harry Potter show is coming back this
Yep.
year, and a second
A
version,
new one.
a
Yeah.
new version. Yeah. So yeah, go check it out. Again, everything is in the events tab of our Facebook page. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.